You've probably seen everybody talking about the Democrats' latest dump of Jeffrey Epstein photos and all of the celebrities who appear in them. But I have a take on this that I've not seen anybody else discussing. So hang in there with me and tell me if you think I'm off base. Now, we should not be surprised to see lots of pictures of Steve Bannon in this latest photo dump. After all, just a couple of weeks ago, there was a release of texts that show Steve Bannon advising Jeffrey Epstein on how to rehab his reputation. Wow, Donald Trump's big fixer, backer, mouthpiece, the guy that Donald Trump pardoned for his scam he was running about the southern border, while Steve Bannon, he's like this with Jeffrey Epstein. That should have surprised none of us. It is surprising that I'm not hearing more MAGA talking about it. I mean, MAGA, your boy Donnie's right-hand man, was awful cozy with Jeffrey Epstein. He plotted with Epstein on how to rehab his image after he was accused of diddling kids, trafficking girls. Likewise, none of us should be surprised to see tons of pictures of Donald Trump, including with all kinds of young women. None of those photos should really be surprising to us. It's great that we have more documentary evidence. Whether that will be persuasive to people who are still loyal to Trump, I don't know, but it's important to have that out there. It's important that a light be shown on what Jeffrey Epstein did and who colluded with him, who participated in his activities, his crimes. But also in this latest photo dump are some pictures that are having some people freaking out a little bit. Honestly, we should not be surprised to see Bill Clinton in these photos, and we definitely should not be surprised to see the likes of Woody Allen in multiple photos. You will never catch me watching a Woody Allen movie, likewise Roman Polanski. Yet the Hollywood machine seems to forgive all kinds of men who love to groom and victimize children because it's all about money. And that's the point that I want to get into. Boy, oh boy, people will overlook a multitude of sins if somebody will make money for them. There were two men in some of these photos that surprised folks a little bit. One was Bill Gates, which is like, okay, anybody who believes that Bill Gates is good and benevolent just because he has a foundation. Lots of rich people have foundations. You should watch my videos about movement capture, about how philanthropy is a scam, how the super rich use their charitable foundations, use their philanthropic giving in order to control society, to shape it the way that they see fit. And there is probably no greater example of that than Bill Gates. These men and their God complexes use their wealth to continue to keep themselves in power, and also they use their wealth to shape society how they see fit in their little brains. Whether or not that's actually best for the rest of us, they have this paternalistic view of the world. They think because they are rich, they can have that kind of power and control over all of us, and they can feel really good about using their money and make poor people do a little dance to get a little handful of pennies. Anyway, maybe that's a topic for another time. So Bill Gates appeared in some of these photos, including there's a photo of Bill Gates on the wall of Jeffrey Epstein's home. There's a photo of Bill Gates with Jeffrey Epstein's longtime pilot. There's no such thing as an ethical billionaire, y'all. There's no such thing as a good billionaire. I mean, that's great that Bill Gates has given a ton of money for malaria research and to treat malaria. Like, that's great. It does not change my point at all. But then there's one more person that people on the left are really having a hard time with, and that's Noam Chomsky. Of course, the joke of the day is that everybody is saying age of manufactured consent, because Chomsky's best known work is Manufacturing Consent, the political economy of mass media. And he's friends with Epstein, who trafficked children. And also adult women. We do not ever want to neglect the fact that it wasn't just children who were trafficked and abused by Jeffrey Epstein. We have to make sure that we are getting justice for all of his victims. So when people are upset to see Chomsky in these photos, when people are even upset to see Bill Gates, so they're like, isn't he one of the better billionaires? Isn't he trying to do good with his money? When people are surprised to see Democratic elites like Bill Clinton in these photos. I mean, we could have a whole conversation about whether Bill Clinton has ever given a shit about regular Americans or not. We could talk about the Democratic establishment, but the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party that's on the side of the people. It's supposed to be the party that cares more about justice and rights, and definitely the rights of children. At least that's how they paint themselves. Although Republicans also paint themselves as the family values party, the party that cares about kids. It's just that, yeah. Whatever, we shouldn't have our illusions about either party. I sure as hell don't. Getting back to Chomsky and any of these men. So you can say, how can people have positions that are like somewhat progressive or are like, an anarchist position or care about like humanitarian causes, like making sure that kids don't get malaria? How can they care about all these good causes and be a member of a political party that we think cares about doing right, but then be friends with Jeffrey Epstein? And I think this brings back around the point that my kid was talking about in a video last night. She had to write this paper for her Poli-Sci 391 class where she was talking about whether in a situation where you have colonizers and a colonized people, whether the colonizers can ever become true allies, whether they can ever become trusted allies working for the liberation of those that they have colonized. And B's argument in her paper was that we need people white people, to be allies with oppressed people, with colonized people in the pursuit of liberation, but that allyship only extends so far, and that everybody should be aware of that fact. She mentioned it a little bit in her video, which I posted on my YouTube. It's also on my backup TikTok account, which you can find right here. She was saying for colonizers, for white people, for whatever group is dominating and oppressing another group of people, the in-group, she was saying that members of the in-group, those who have power, you can reach them. They have a conscience. A lot of them are moved by human suffering. A lot of them don't want to see human suffering. They will advocate for an end of violence. They will advocate for more rights or relief for the colonized, oppressed group. They can only be trusted so far to be an ally. They will only work for partial relief. They won't work for liberation. They won't work for an end to the system that is oppressing these folks over here in the out-group, because the members of the in-group continue to benefit from that system. It's very much like how Democrats are controlled opposition, because Democratic elites, they don't want the kinds of necessary reforms that would bring liberation to the working class, because they benefit. Their stock portfolios benefit. They get their palms greased by foreign money, corporate money, dark money, APAC money. That's what Bea was talking about last night when she was saying that Martin Luther King talked about how white allies would come in and be outraged and want to ally with the civil rights movement when they saw really overt acts of violence against Black people, but they wouldn't turn out in the same way to talk about legislative change or dismantling policies of the government. They didn't want to work to dismantle systemic oppression. They just didn't want to be forced to bear witness to. Their consciences were pricked, having to watch overt violence by the government, by the oppressor, against, in this case, Black people, but in Bea's paper, by colonizers against Native people. I don't know if you can see where I'm taking this in relation to Jeffrey Epstein, but it's exactly the same. When we're talking about colonizers versus Native people, when we're talking about the American government, white supremacy against Black people, when we're talking about the patriarchy against women, when we're talking about the super rich against everybody else, we should never be surprised when a member of the in-group, the group in power, pays lip service or takes some action to assist and to be an ally to vulnerable groups, oppressed groups. But at the end of the day, their wealth and their power are conferred on them by those systems of oppression. And so they will not very readily work to want to dismantle those systems. How could Noam Chomsky be viewed as like an anarchist or a libertarian socialist and yet be friends with Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, members of the political establishment that are trafficking girls? Because at the end of the day, men will not give up their oppression against women. The super rich will not let go of their wealth and power, their social sphere, the benefits they get from being part of that social sphere with all those other powerful, wealthy people. Because at the end of the day, it's still their wealth, their power, their sick, fucked up need, desire to exploit other people, to victimize other people. So honestly, none of us should be surprised when any wealthy, powerful person, famous person, ends up being on the Epstein list. We should not be surprised. Does that mean that every member of the in-group, every member of the oppressing group cannot actually want to dismantle those systems? I'm not saying that. Yeah, there are people who actually want liberation, but it is a huge hurdle that I think most members of the in-group are not willing to leap over. There is a limit to how much they will help the colonized group, the oppressed group, the victimized women and girls, the working class. because they don't want to give up their own comfort, their own security, their own power and wealth. There are people who can overcome that hurdle. They're not wealthy people going to Jeffrey Epstein's parties.